everyone, and welcome back to another screencast on proportion. This one's on inverse proportion even. And if you haven't watched the videos previously on proportion, it's definitely worth going to watch those before you watch this one, because if you haven't, you'll really struggle with it. It's not that it's difficult, it'll just be a completely different concept to you. So please make sure you do that before you do this one. All right, so we have to go over what direct proportion is and then what the difference between inverse proportion is. So what is direct proportion? We've done this before. The term direct proportion means that two or more quantities increase or decrease at the same rate. Okay, we'll give you an example of that in a minute. That's from Wikipedia. And what is inverse proportion? Inverse proportion occurs when one value increases and the other decreases, or the other way round. For example, more workers on a job would reduce the time they can take to complete the task. They are inversely proportional. That's from BBC Bitesize website. Let's give you an example of direct proportion that we've done before. So we have two builders and that costs us £400. And we want to find out how many 4 builders will cost us. Well, we times that by 2. And then we make sure we times the other side by 2 also. So we get 4 builders at £800. What about if we want to find out what 1 builder is going to cost? Well, we divide the 2 builders by 2, and then we divide the 400 by 2, and we end up with 1 builder equals £200. And that makes perfect sense, okay, because we want more builders, it's going to cost us more money, and vice versa. We've got less builders, it's going to cost us less money. But these inverse proportionally, they kind of work a little bit differently, and this is the reason why. 2 builders will take 6 days to do a job, all right? So if we want to say, all right, what about if we have 4 builders? Well, let's think about this logically. 4 builders are going to take less time, and this is where this is different. So if we times the builders by 2, then we actually divide the other side by 2 because it's going to take them less time. So we'll end up with 4 builders taking 3 days to do a task. But we can go the other way and say, okay, what about if we've got 2 builders and we've only got 1 builder, right? So what would we do? We would divide that side by 2 to get us down to 1 builder. But if we do that, we must times the other side by 2 because it's going to take them longer to do the task. 1 builder is going to take longer than 2 builders or 4 builders. So very, very simply, if we divide one side, we times the other. If we times one side, we divide the other. And it really is as simple as that. And if you think about it logically, then more builders, less time they'll need. Less builders, more time they'll need. That's how often they are asked, is things like food or builders and things. Those are the types of questions. So the way that you know whether it's directly proportional or inversely proportional is by the question. You need to read the question really, really well, and then you'll know what to do. Okay, so here's a simple example question for you. It takes 6 hours for 4 men to paint a room. How many men would be needed to paint the room in 2 hours? So first of all, we start with our ratio. Okay, so we've got 6 hours ratio 4 men. So we're trying to get down to 2 hours, okay? So how would we go from 6 hours to 2 hours? Well, we could do one thing. We could find out what 1 hour is and then start from there. Or on this case, it's very easy to get from 6 to 2 by dividing it by 3. Okay, so we want to get to 2 hours, so we're going to divide it by 3. So if we divide one side by 3, then we're going to times the other side by 3 because we're going to need more men to do the job quicker. So it would take 12 men 2 hours to do the job, all right? And it really is as simple as that. So I know that goes against what we've been doing. We've divided and divided or times and times, but on this one, we do it slightly differently. Okay, so now we're going to look at a question where it's much harder to get down to the required number, and therefore we have to do sort of 2 of these to get them right. So here we go. There's enough hay to feed 5 sheep for 10 days. How long would the same amount of hay be to feed 9 sheep. Terribly written question. I do apologise. But yeah, let's go. So we've got here, we've got 5 sheep, 10 days worth of hay. And we need to get down to 1 sheep. Okay, so 1 sheep. So what will we do? We divide that side by 5, which means we would times this side by 5. So 1 sheep would give us enough hay for 50 days. All right, so now we're going to start again on the other side, because now we want to find out for 9 sheep. Okay, so we're going to go 1 sheep, 50 days, and then we're going to get that 1 sheep and we're going to times it by 9, yeah, to give us 9 sheep on that side. And if we times on that side, we're going to divide this side. So we've got 9 sheep ratio of 5.55 days. Okay, it's actually, I think it's 5.5 recurring, but I will just stick it at that. You may have got something slightly different there. Okay, so those are the 2 ways that we would do it. Sometimes you can't get it down to, the required amount, so you need to go to 1 and then do it again, okay? But very similarly, that's what happens. It's very similar to direct proportion, apart from, obviously, you're doing the opposite on the other side. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's time now for the quiz. So let me read out the question for you. It is worked out that if 4 ladles full of soup are given to each person, 160 people can be fed. The problem is that the customers have complained in the past that the portion sizes are too small and not as many people are coming to the restaurant. Because of this, the chef makes the decision to give 5 ladles full of soup to each person. How many people can now be fed? So just to give you, okay, so first thing is, if you know straight away what to do, pause the video now and go and do it. If you don't know what to do, I'm going to give you a little bit of a helping hand in a second. So pause the video now if you don't need any help. If you do need some help, then stay along and I'll tell you something to help you. Okay, so the real key here is that you're going to have 4 ladles to the ratio of 160 people. Get that down to 1 ladle. Okay, so you can divide by 4 to get it down to 1 ladle. That's your starting point. Once you've got your answer to that, then you can, upscale it from there. Okay, so that's my little tip. So if I was to give you a little tip in words, it would be 4 ladles ... 160, and you want to get it down to 1 ladle. So you're going to divide this side by 4, which means that you'll do something else on this side. I can't give you any more help than that. But once you've got your answer here, then you would look for 5 ladles. Okay. Right. Anyway, it's time to go over the answers. So here we go. So we can see here we've got 4 ladles, 160 people. We're dividing it by 4 to give us 1 ladle. We're timesing it by 4 to give us 640 people. So this means if we just gave them 1 ladle full, we get 640 people fed. But the chef said, no, we need to give them more food to keep them happy. So I've got my 1 ladle at 640 people. I'm going to times it by 5 to find 5 ladles full. But because I've times it by 5, I'm dividing it by 5 to give us 128. But anyway, hopefully you've done really well. If you haven't, please go back and watch the video. Please pause the video and do the questions. That is the key thing. If you just watch the videos, then you won't be as successful as you would be. If you pause every question I do, try and do them along with me, goes a long way to being successful. Hopefully you are successful. You've done really well. You're going to write a revision card now. But until next time, it's been a pleasure helping you with your maths. Hopefully you have already become a lot more successful than you were before, and you should keep going with it. And don't fix what ain't broken. Until next time, it's a pleasure.